I read 6 books in January. Some of them were short, but still, 6. So let's talk about them. The first book that I read in January was Every Heart a Doorway by Seanan McGuire, which I gave 5 out of 5 stars. It was amazing. I did some tabbing, and I also made a legend. I did different colored tabs for different types of things because there were so many wonderful, meaningful, magical parts in the story that I just loved so very, very much. So Every Heart a Doorway is about a boarding school that is for teenagers who have gone away to magical worlds and have come back to our world and are having trouble adjusting and coming to terms with the fact that they're probably not going to go back to this magical world. It follows a new student at this school and her kind of trying to fit in with the other kids at the school, but also people are getting murdered. So they're trying to figure out what's going on with that as well. What I loved so much about this book and what I've come to realize is the thing that I love about most books that I love is that the storytelling, the way that I like to describe it, is that it's very quiet. Like, there was a mystery, there was stuff that was intriguing that was going on, but it wasn't like, nonstop action or nonstop drama. It had beautiful descriptions and thoughts about these magical worlds and about how everyone felt so accepted and like themselves in these magical worlds and how, like, just the descriptions and the way the story flows, it's a little bit slower than, like an action-packed book, but not slow in a boring way. So to me, I describe that as quiet, which I have come to realize are some of my favorite books, are magical stories with a quiet storytelling. And so this had a quiet storytelling, in my opinion, and I loved it so, so much. The next book that I read was Tiny Pretty Things by Sona Cherapatra and Danielle Clayton, which I gave 4 to 5 stars. This was actually really good. I really enjoyed this. I wasn't expecting to not like it, otherwise I wouldn't have gotten it. I was expecting to like it, but I was surprised because I thought it was just going to be basically drama-filled, and there was more to it than that. Tiny Pretty Things is about teenagers at a ballet school who are all terrible people. They're all terrible to each other, and they're all trying to sabotage each other. Mostly in this book, everyone is trying to sabotage the new girl who gets all the leads in all the ballet performances, and they're jealous of her, and they don't think it's fair that she's just come in and is new to this school and is getting all the good parts. And so they all are trying to sabotage her. And it's super, super petty, super childish, ridiculous drama. The stuff that happens, ridiculous. But it goes deep into the characters and issues that they're having at home and with themselves personally. There is somebody with an eating disorder in it, if that's something that is difficult for you to read, just a warning. It doesn't go super deep into it. It goes more deep into it in the second book, but there's a lot of personal parts to the story that I thought were really well done. And I also really liked the writing and the descriptions of them dancing and how it felt for them to be dancing, and it was really good. I really enjoyed this. I gave this 4 to 5 stars. After Tiny Pretty Things, I read How to Stop Time by Matt Haig, which I also tabbed. I gave this 5 out of 5 stars. I loved this. This is also a quiet story with magic. So this is about a guy who was born like a really, really, really long time ago, and he has this condition that makes him age way slower than a normal human being. It takes him like 7 years to age 1 year, or was it 14 years to age 1 year? Now I can't remember. 7? I forget, but he ages way slower than anybody else, and so it takes him forever for it to even look like he's aged 1 or 2 years. And it is just about his journey going through his life, and it goes back and forth between like the present day and flashbacks from his earlier years, living through all of these different time periods where he gets to, like, he even worked for Shakespeare at one point in his life. And it was so wonderful and magical. There's a little bit of a mystery that happens throughout it as well, and I just really enjoyed it, and I really want to read more books by Matt Haig. Okay, so after reading How to Stop Time, I read Aurora Rising by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. I didn't like it. I gave it 2 stars. I'm kind of proud of myself for finishing it because it's almost 500 pages. And I mean, this last 200 pages I skimmed. But I did not enjoy it. I didn't think it was a bad book, which is why I'm not giving it 1 star. But I did not like it. So I gave it 2 stars. This book is about a girl who lives in the future, who's going to a different planet to live with her dad and her stepmom. And she's like cryogenically frozen for the trip there or something. And then something happens to her ship, and it's been 200 years, and she's been cryogenically frozen for 200 years, and this guy from some like space cadet school finds her, and there's questions about what happened, and why everybody else is dead that was frozen, but why she's not, and the planet that she was going to that her dad lived on apparently doesn't exist, and there's all these secrets that they're trying to uncover, which seems good and fascinating, but to me it was not. I really enjoyed the first few chapters, and when we were finding out, like, that this planet that she was headed to apparently doesn't exist, and she's like, but it does exist, because my dad lived there, and I was on my way there, why is this being kept a secret? Why are people after me? It was very like, oh, what's going on? But then they would just, like, throw that on the back burner, and then they would just do action stuff. It was just action, scene after action, scene after action, scene after action scene. And a lot of them felt like I didn't care about what was happening, because to me it felt like it wasn't related to the rest of the story, and it wasn't helping us get any answers. And some of the stuff that they had to do in order to do other things felt ridiculous to me. I was like, really? This also has multiple first-person POVs, and they were all super unnecessary, because throughout most of the book, all of the characters are together in the same room on the same ship, and it was not necessary to have all of these different POVs. It just made it confusing and hard for me to get to know characters, because there were so many of them. And it didn't make a difference whose point of view we were reading from, because it's not like we got really any backstory of them or any flashbacks or anything like that. We were just like, now we're in the control room, and instead of reading from the pilot, we're reading from the person who's on the guns or whatever. Like, it did not add to the story at all, in my opinion. And reading the reviews, everyone thought that, I don't even remember any of the characters' names, but there was one specific character that everyone thought, like, carried the whole book, and they thought that was the strongest character, and I didn't think any of the characters were any stronger than any other one, and I couldn't remember who was who, like, who had what job, really, on the ship and stuff. I didn't care about any of them, and I didn't like it, and I'm really sad. I don't know what to do with this book, because it's signed and personalized. Like, I don't want it on my shelf anymore, but, like, what do I do with it? I don't know. Is anybody else named Nat who would really like this book? Okay, so then after that, I read Shiny Broken Pieces, which is the sequel to Tiny Pretty Things, and I gave this 4 stars as well. I really enjoyed it. It had less drama than the first book, and it went deeper into the characters' stories, which I really enjoyed. There was still some drama to make it kind of like, ooh, what's the person gonna do and stuff. But I really enjoyed and appreciated the fact that it went deeper into the characters' lives and the things that they were dealing with. I really enjoyed this. And also it does go a bit deeper into the one character's eating disorder in this one, which I thought was really well done. One part made me cry. The only thing that kind of bothered me about the duology as a whole, I guess, is that there is a mystery in this one that I thought was going to be resolved at the end of the first book, but instead something new happened that was going to carry into the second book, and I was like, are we going to talk about the mystery that we were following throughout this? And I mean, they do. The mystery is solved in the second book, but it was very, like, in passing. It was as if it wasn't a big deal in the first book, but it kind of was. So I was a little disappointed that the mystery, because the mystery was kind of a big deal, at least to me in the first book. And the second book, it was kind of just like, oh yeah, that person. Okay, moving on. And I was like, oh, okay, so we're not going to make a big deal about this. All right. So that's a little annoying, but whatever. Anyway, I really enjoyed this duology. It was really good. And the last book that I read in January, I just wanted to read a quick book that I could for sure finish before the end of the month whenever I picked it up. So I read Fantastic Mr. Fox by Roald Dahl, which was actually a little difficult for me to rate, to be honest, because So Roald Dahl he wrote kids books, okay? But he also has, like, kids books for older kids and kids books for younger kids. And the ones for older kids, I felt like were also written for the parents. Like, it felt like they were written for the parents to enjoy them with their kids. They had a lot of really smart humor in them, like Matilda and Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Even the BFG, I felt like had a lot of really, not like dirty adult humor, but like humor that only adults would really appreciate. And then obviously cute stuff that kids would enjoy. And this is the second book now by Roald Dahl that doesn't really have that. The Magic Finger I read in the summer, and it was just a little cutesy little kid story. And this was the same. It's just about a fox and his family who lives near these 3 farmer friends, and he steals all of their food from their farm. And the farmers decide that they're gonna wait at his foxhole and kill him when he comes out of the hole. And it's just about him and his family digging tunnels. And, like, I feel like if I tell you more, I'm going to tell you how the story ends. But, like, there's no, like, it's just about them living in the tunnels and not going out to be killed because they know that the farmers are going to kill them. And, I mean, there was nothing really funny. There was one funny line in it that I was going to tab, but then I was like, eh. And it was about eating carrots or something. But, so for me personally, as an adult, I would rate it 3 stars, but I gave it 4 stars on Goodreads because obviously I am not this book's target audience. This book was not written for me. And for me to say that it didn't have any humor for adults to appreciate and that there wasn't much to it and that there wasn't any depth to it is, like, silly of me to critique it for those reasons, because that's not what this book is for. It's for children. So I feel like it was a cute children's story. So I gave it 4 stars for that reason. And those are the books that I read in January. Let me know in the comments what you read in January, and have a good day. Bye.